Hello all. First of all, what is the best thing you would say to do when starting to learn a language?
Right. Okay. That's a good question. Everyone asks me about, what is the first step? Right. Okay. So the first thing is, well, obviously what I would recommend is to play around with words and phrases. Like, let's just say you don't know anything about the language. Obviously, it's your first step. You want to get to know the language itself. So what you do is like, I play around with Google Translate or whichever translator you are comfortable with using. So basically, you just see how words change. For example, the first thing would be singular and plural. Does this language have singular and plural? Does this language have gender, masculine, feminine, neutral terms, and perhaps phrases? So like how the past and the present tense, so the different verb tenses, how they change. Does it have like verb conjugation? So that a lot of languages, such as Asian languages, mostly they don't have verb tenses. So they only use like a particle to specify its past, its present, or future, right? So it happens a lot in Indonesian, in Chinese, in Vietnamese. They don't have past tenses. So probably in that case, it would be easier to study the language because all you have to do is learn the verb and the particle will always be the same, right? So if you learn the pattern of the language in the first place, it will be easier for you to know where you're going and what you have to focus on. Because if the verbs are easy, then all you have to do is learn vocabulary because there's no grammar. Like, think of Chinese. Chinese is really easy when it comes to grammar, but it's harder when it comes to pronunciation or writing. So perhaps you want to focus a bit more on how to write it and how to pronounce it. So in terms of like tones, you've got like 5 tones in Chinese, so you probably want to focus on those ones. And then obviously get a gist of like the grammar, how the grammar works. Again, gender, plural and singular, which are again something that if you're studying well German, I'm not really familiar with German, but if you're studying German, you definitely have 3 genders perhaps. So you probably want to also like open your mind to like a new world of opportunities in that way, right? For example, Croatian, I always need to think I got declensions. So when it's like when a noun is an object and when it's a subject, then it has to change like the suffix, so the ending part of the word. So probably that's something my brain would not work that way when I speak English. But definitely if I move on to Croatian, then I need to change my brain chip in a way, right? And think, okay, now I need to like stick to the declensions in Croatian. And then look for basic phrases you may need. Although you're probably not traveling right away to the country, but perhaps always is like I think there's like a lot of web pages, YouTube videos that you can watch where basically they teach you basic phrases for travelers, for tourists, or phrases to get by. So perhaps focus on those ones as well, just to see the different greetings, how to say like basic phrases such as "thank you," "you're welcome." So a lot of times people start with Duolingo. That's something I would not completely recommend. I'm not a huge fan. Also because Duolingo doesn't explain the grammar behind a topic. So I have a lot of students that come to my class and they're like, can you explain why is, for example, in Italian, why is the ending O changing into I? And that's plural, but Duolingo obviously will not tell you. It will just make you do exercises on it without really explaining it beforehand. So perhaps start with YouTube video. There are like a lot of YouTube video. There's one I use also in Portuguese. It's called Smile and Learn. I use it with kids sometimes, but it's good because it teaches you vocabulary and divides it in categories. So perhaps like if you want to learn some food, then it gives you like all the food vocabulary. If you want to learn the rooms of your house, then it gives you that kind of vocabulary. So also to get a sense of what the language sounds like, because a lot of words we're able to read them, understand them, but then the pronunciation it's tricky, isn't it? Like it changes. It happens to me still nowadays in English. A lot of words, like I read them, I understand them, and then when it comes to pronouncing them, it gives me a hard time. But yeah, some other apps I would recommend also as a beginners, definitely Busu. I think obviously this one you have to pay for subscription. It's a bit expensive, but it gives you a certificate at the end. So it's like you're studying, but you get to a specific level in the language. So it's probably useful. And one more language I discovered last year, it's called language transfer. I'm a visual learner. So I know that when I want to study a language, all I have to do is look at the word, write it down, or perhaps like watch a video, but the video has to tell me how to write the word next to it. If I only hear it pronounced, I will never learn it. But if I jot it down, I will remember forever. So on my phone, in my notes, I have each language dictionary that I made myself. I made like a vocabulary list because every time my friend, like someone in the street, tells me a word, I write it down. and I'm sure I'll remember it. So language transfer, this app works on your listening skills. Basically, you don't have a video, you only have a teacher in the classroom with a student. The teacher is talking to the student and is teaching the language. So all you have to do is listen to it, and the teacher makes you repeat over and over again the same sentence and makes you understand the sentence structure. So if you're like, if you learn better just by listening, perhaps that would be the best app for you. I tried it with Swahili. I went back on the app. It really worked. And they also told me like a great deal of the grammar. So that's probably something I would recommend. And the first step, again, just to sum it up, basic phrases, get a sense of what the language sounds like and what the language is like. So again, get a sense of the grammar and the basic phrases.
Great, thank you.
So, sorry, just to say, Paul, what we're going to do, guys, we'll get all of the links, that Salvatore suggests. We'll get all of them. We'll get a nice list, and then we can send you an email with all of these useful links. So don't worry about that. Sorry, Paul.
No, it's fine. So the next one, is there a particular time of day that you find it better to digest new languages, information, or vocabulary?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your question. So, definitely I would say nowadays my answer would be morning, morning time. I used to be a night owl. When I was preparing for exams or tests at high school, I would be up all night. And once I sleep over it, then I would remember the notions next day. It really worked. Like sometimes I was playing, like the sleep with English, sleep with Indonesian, like you just put those videos on and you sleep over them and you actually remember some words the next day. Some of them proved effective, but however, I would say nowadays I tend to study much more in the morning when the mind is fresh. Like even today before the session, I was actually revising some conditional tenses in Dutch and Swedish, just because sometimes I make like my own list of like grammar points that I want to learn or teach my students.
Quick conditional test in Dutch, of course.
A quick conditional tense, why not? I mean, that's my motto. Like every time is the perfect time to learn language. There's no wrong time, and that's actually one of the tips I would probably discuss much later on in the session. But definitely I would say, yeah, it's when your mind is fresh in the morning. Like, obviously I teach in the morning, I work, but today because I had a session, I had some free time before it, I was like, let me just study some conditional tense in Dutch, why not? And you can assimilate more content. I feel like, in the morning your mind is fresh, you can absorb more content, right? And definitely also there's like one more one thing I was reading a couple of months ago about the input and output of a language. So basically in the evening, you should try to have like more input content, like probably watch a video, but without taking too many notes. It's like just absorbing the content in the evening. And then in the morning is more like output, which means probably you can do like a reading comprehension exercise, do some tests, assessment level, or perhaps like a writing test, writing task. It would be probably like a morning task to carry out. But yeah, but definitely, again, my answer would be all the time is the best time to learn language. But if I need to choose the perfect time of the day, then I would say morning, definitely.
Okay. And then our next question is coming from Bev in Tagalog. So if you could just repeat after you've answered the question what you actually said, because obviously there's not many people on the call that can speak Tagalog.
Okay.
Hello.
Hi, magandang umaga.
Magandang umaga. My question is, nakapunta ka na ba ng Pilipinas?
Oh, sa kasampalat, hindi pa ako nakakapunta sa Pilipinas o sa Asia, pero sana makapunta ako balang araw.
Ano? Sorry.
Ano, sorry? Hindi. Hindi, yeah, pero sana makapunta ako balang araw, hindi pa ako nakakapunta sa Pilipinas o sa
Anong
Asia.
gusto mo doon?
No, pasensya nga kung hindi mayos ang Tagalog ko.
Pero ang galing mo, ang dami mong lingwahe.
No, nagsimula akong mag-aral ng Tagalog dahil may Pilipino sa itanang class ko at gusto niya akong turuan ng Tagalog. Dahil akala niya magaling ako. Pero
Magaling ka, magaling. Madali kang natuto.
Totoo. Yeah. Ito rin ang dahilan kung bakit ako nagsimulang mag-aral ng Swahili. Meron akong isang estudyante na nag-aral ng Italian at binibigyan niya ako ng mga salita sa Swahili sa bawat klase. ng Italian. Sa tingin ko, madali lang ang mga bokabularyo sa Spanish pero mahirap talaga ang grammar.
Meron kaming pareho sa, I mean, more in Spanish.
Yeah, exactly.
Similar.
Exactly.
Yes.
Marap
I'm just going to interject. Sorry, guys. I'm just going to interject. Oscar, are you convinced?
Yes.
So if you could just quickly explain, Salvatore,
Right.
what the conversation was, but like my mind is now blown. It's officially blown. This is incredible.
So yeah, basically, I mean, she was asking me if I've been to the Philippines. I've never been to Asia. Well, not like East Asia. I've never traveled. I mean, my degree was supposed to be in China. I studied in China, but it was online class because of COVID. So it was literally that year I was supposed to travel to China, but obviously borders were closed. So she was asking me if I've ever been to the Philippines. I've never been to Asia. So unfortunately, no, but hopefully one day I will travel there. It's definitely on my bucket list. And then she was asking me like why I was studying Tagalog or Filipino. Basically, it all started with when I had like a student of mine in my Italian. I used to teach Italian a few years ago, and there was a guy from the Philippines, the only student from the Philippines in my class. And it was like, no, Sal, you need to learn Tagalog. Anyway, he really wanted to be my teacher. He thought my pronunciation was good. And I was like, okay, let's try. And then he started teaching me. Now he's really busy. I don't have a teacher anymore, but you know, he's really helped me a lot during that period. And we learned a lot of vocabulary. So obviously my answer was that I feel like the vocabulary in Tagalog is quite easy because it's very similar to Spanish. Like I can learn the vocabulary in no time. But when it comes to grammar and verbs, I struggle a lot. And that is why like Tagalog is like when I put like the list of the languages I speak, it's always like at the bottom because it's like I'm still in progress. I'm still learning vocabulary. I can tell you everything. I can make you a list. But when it comes to like mixed sentences, it's really hard for me. Like even verbs, I still don't get like, you know, the imperfect, perfect, when the action is completed, it basically changes. The same happens in Indonesian, but Indonesian is way easier to transform verbs and to make just a suffix or a prefix. Whilst in Tagalog, the whole verb changes because they add like middle part to the verb, which makes it harder to recognize it.
Okay. But I mean, I think we're all impressed that was incredible. So thank you for that, Bev. And maybe like we can help to get some connections from Bev and you can practice Tagalog with somebody. So thank you so much, Bev.